Welcome to Reality After Show coverage of The Challenge. We're talking season 40, and tonight we are breaking down Era 2. I'm Dan Montchal, your host, joined as always every week by my ride or die, Alex Trias, and Paulie Calafiore. Some may say the star of the 30s of The Challenge.
I mean, is there somebody more polarizing in the 30s that came out as a newcomer from like Dirty 30 to 39?
Nah.
On the men's side,
they wish.
No. I feel like on the girls' side, maybe. Nerys has been pretty polarizing.
But I feel like she gets all the love. So I'd say more love character than polarizing.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, polarizing has to get the love and the hate.
Yeah.
I guess there hasn't been a character in the 30s that gets the love and the hate. And actually loves the hate.
Yes.
With the love. Like, did you guys just watch that thing that was posted on the challenge? I think it was like Amanda and Olivia. And like Olivia was just like, I mean, like, I feel like everybody loves me. And like that, to me, is the problem with the newbies. It's like, why do you care if everybody loves you? Why do you care? Like, Olivia is such a savage competitor. And she's spicy and she's sassy. And I hear what she says behind closed doors. She's not like a I love everybody person. So why be like, I think everybody loves me? It's like, why do you care? You're from Alaska. You're an athlete. You're an absolute savage. You're strong. You're smart. You're pretty. Who cares?
I agree. Because, like, let's be real. It's like, no matter what, you're going to be on the show. You're going to get love either way. If you're getting hate, the saying goes, like, if you're getting hate, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I was going to say, there's no one on the show that's gotten complete love that's been on it long enough. Like, if you're doing something right, whether you start out as the heel or you become it, you're not truly getting the whole reality TV arc if you don't experience both sides of it. Because think of any challenge great. At some point, they were loved, and at some point, they were hated.
Dan is preaching. Let me put my hand over my chest and put my hand up. Because here's the thing. And I feel as though this strictly came because Olivia was extremely loved on her first season. And then when she turned on Nerys, extremely, she got some backlash. I wouldn't say extremely hated. But, Nerys is my girl. I love Nerys. I've known her forever. But for Olivia to want to come into another season and kind of be like, I need to do this tour because I want to be loved again. It's like, Olivia, just ride it out for a couple seasons. See how much you like it. You know what I mean? Like, I think I came on to Final Reckoning, and it was a mixed reaction. I think the fans kind of liked it, and I think a lot of the OGs hated it on Twitter, at least, because I remember, like, OGs that hadn't been on in decades were, like, coming out of the woodworks to be like, dude, fuck this guy. And I'm like, who are you? You know what I mean? And, like, I didn't know who they were, but I kind of knew who they were because I like binge watched everything leading up to my first season. And I was kind of like, yeah, but the fans kind of like love me. And then complete turnaround season 2. And after that, I could have been like, oh shit, I want to be like loved again on that third season. But I was like, fuck it.
You steered right into it, which is something where like Jay last season on 39, if you're going to make all those moves and you're going to do everything, at least own it and do it. But you see him on social media, anytime someone attacks him trying to defend everything, it's just like, bro, just lean into the curve at this point. Like, you did what you did.
I mean, all I can say is if he had leaned into it, you may have seen him on Era 4. Just saying.
Listen, you said it, not me. You said it, not me. But here's the thing. We've talked about 39 so much in the sense that when I came on the show, who was on my first season? Bananas was there. Big time guy. CT was there. Big time guy. You had TYB there, who were the up and coming, like, guys, big personalities. Okay. That's what I had to compete with, right? Then my second season, all those big names are still there. Third season, now enter Jordan into the mix. That's who I'm competing with, not just from a competition standpoint, but like, I feel like the new people, they go into the seasons thinking of a storyline too much. We're like, I just went into the seasons like, yo, I got to make it to the end. Otherwise, these people aren't going to respect me and I'm never going to get called back again. And through that, I was able to have a major storyline on War of the Worlds 1 and War of the Worlds 2, where do you think if I was on 39 that I would have been a background character?
No.
Like, it's almost embarrassing that the men on that season were background characters. There was not one person. Like, Jay had that ability to just kind of do it, and then on social media be like, yeah, I did it. Fuck it. Deal with it. Cry about it. And he was just like, no, I'm a good guy, which he is a good guy. Like, I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a bad guy in real life. But when it came to the game, when it came to people complaining about stuff that I was doing in the game, I was like, dude, like, yeah, I did it. Like, what are you going to do? Cry about it? Like, shut up.
Right.
Which is perfect.
No, like, you're preaching to the choir here because, like, everyone wants to be seen as a nice guy. Like, Dan and I bragged on Jay all of last season, but, like, we always preface it with the fact, like, we know he's a good guy outside the show. We know he's, like, what you see on the show isn't the person outside the show. But, like, in the show, you're a dick. Own the fact that you're being a dick right now. And, like, that's what's going to get you back. That's why CTs and Johnnies and Wes's and all of them, like, would continue to come back. Because, like, whatever they were on TV, they amplified that offline as well.
Yeah. I mean, CT's an anomaly, right? Because when he's off the show, he's a ghost. However, the reason why CT can get away with what he is now is because he was such a savage back in the day that anybody that's watched him knows that's in their mind. And they're like, the growth is what's amazing here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But like Johnny, when you look at his arc, it was like, you know, up, down, up, down, up, down. And he never, he leans into it no matter what. When he's the hero, he leans into the hero. When he's the villain, he leans into the villain. Wes does a great job of this too. And Wes back in the day was a madman also. And now he's kind of turned into like this funny, quirky, like wise, you know, mastermind-esque figure. But he rides with it and he rolls with it. Jordan, whatever you see there and however it's interpreted, he is who he is, right? So like on Free Agents, people are saying he's a dumbass and he's cocky and he's all this stuff. Over time, he's got 4 championships. Kind of hard to like really hate him. You kind of accepted who he is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And like that's why he's a polarizing character. Like the polarizing characters, the ones that have stayed, right? Which is why like when I've talked about All-Stars in the past and I've like made jokes and been like, nobody wants to see these people, right? It's because like you didn't really stand out then amongst the people who did stand out. And now you're coming back getting a new lease at life where it's like you kind of were dropped at that time for a reason because you weren't bringing in the viewers. And now you're here thinking that you're like the saving grace to the show. And like, no, it's still those main characters that were the main characters. Like as Jordan said last episode, everybody focused on the merits, the statistics, and those are the personalities that everything revolved around because the episodes revolve around who wins the dailies, who goes into the eliminations.
Yeah.
Period.
And that's just
100%.
Back in the day, it wasn't like, ooh, look at this background character. They're kind of funny. Ooh, look at this background character. They're kind of nuts. It's like they were winning.
Yeah. No, you had to stand out. And
yeah,
so
back in the day, you had a 23-minute episode. Like, it's not a 90-minute episode like we have today. Like, you don't get to have the joys of being like a middling person in the game, but get the screen time because you're funny and professional. That's the perks of today. But speaking of the old school, like
I was going to say,
I don't know if I would call it perks, right? Like the perks, like I said it last episode, like I'm so sick and tired of the narrative being spun of like, it's, hold on a second.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry, were you going to say something, Alex?
No, and when I say perks, like I'm saying more of like there's more opportunity than there was. Like in terms of just the amount of time with screen time.
Yeah.
But like you have to make it. You have to make it your screen time. Like if you're a
had to
star,
make it-
you're going to just be amplified more because there's more time.
And I feel like if you were going to stand out back in the old seasons, you
Right, I
would
gotta
have done it because
not
there was
speak in
only
Jersey voice.
like what the cast would be on those first few seasons was only 10, 12 people. So if you were going to stand out, it would have been noticeable. And if you couldn't do it back then,
For sure.
you're probably not going to be able to do it now. But speaking of the old school, because Paulie, you did miss last week. We know you have a lot to say about Era One. So we want to get your rapid fire on some of the OGs that are coming into the season.
All right,
So
OGs.
let's start with we'll lob you an easy softball to start off. Let's go Mark Long.
What's there's nothing bad to say about the guy. He's like he's like the mayor of the challenge, right?
Okay.
He everybody likes him, keeps himself in good shape. He's the Godfather. He's always going to be that. Love Mark. I think he brings a lot to the table, competitor wise, and also just like he's just a good presence to be around.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to Darrell.
Darrell, I love Darrell so much, but I feel like he's in like dad era, like businessman era Darrell.
Mm-hmm.
And he's turned into like funny guy Darrell. Where like the seasons that I like the most about Darrell is when he was like Golden Glove Darrell, kind of savage Darrell. You know, like he walked
knocking
around with
Brad's
like that,
eye out.
yeah, like he didn't have to like flaunt it, you know, and be in people's faces, but like people knew, don't fuck with Darrell.
All right, so someone who
you
did
need
fuck
prize fighter Darrell. You need
I was
prize
saying,
fighter Darrell.
with someone who
I
did
need
fuck
prize
with Darrell, let's go to Brad.
So Brad and I, we've had our history, and he is the sweetest guy in the world. So it's like if I would have known how sweet of a guy he was, like I feel bad now, like how I was on Final Reckoning towards him, knowing how nice of a guy he is. Competitor wise, he brings a level to the game, to the OGs. I feel like he's one of the OGs that definitely keeps himself in that shape where he's not injury prone. Like he's kind of bulletproof and he could win. I don't think he's good on teams, but individually he's good.
That makes sense. All right. Here, another easy one for you. CT.
I got nothing bad to say about my Boston brother there. CT was like my mentor on Final Reckoning in the Redemption House. I feel like he kind of molded me into the player that I was because I spent that first leg of the Redemption House. We were in there for 2 weeks. So imagine having like 2 weeks worth of like almost 20 hours a day talking to this guy about the game and having him like just because he's like, fuck it, I'm never going to see these people again. Like laying out how he breaks down the game, how he maps out like the, you know, red string and everything, and how he approaches the game of like, now this is this person's number one, this is this person's number one, and these people at the top aren't going to start looking at each other until this point in the game. So you got to make sure that you take out this one because they're dangerous, and they're still not going to start looking in your direction because they're still looking here, and then you got to take the shot here. And like it was a masterclass.
That's awesome. And then wrapping it up for the guys, Derek Kaczynski.
I love Derek, the Pitbull. I feel like he's riding off of that Joss elimination for a while. Where like, if we are being honest about it, it was his brain that won that because, you know, he was kind of getting dogged the whole time. Yeah. And it was a mental lapse by Joss that allowed him to do that. And like, he's been able to ride off of that for a long time. Derek in his heyday, probably the most dangerous competitor that you could go against. But once again, like all these guys are now like, they're older. They're dads. They've got businesses. They've got other things that hold more value than being an absolute savage. He's one of the other ones that keeps himself in like absolute insane shape. But he's not the same guy that is like poking all the time, you know, and trying to get you to break.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so moving on to the women. Oh, let's start with Alex's favorite, Anissa.
You know, I used to have a lot to say about Anissa, but I will say, seeing after Ryder dies, her go on this journey of like, I got to get fit and I got to go for this win because I don't want to be Anissa. How many seasons never winning? You know, because from an elimination standpoint, who beats her? Not many people. But is she ever in a position of power to control the game? No, because she's not winning dailies. Politically, everybody can kind of write her off like, it's just Anissa. And if we're being honest, for the most part, people want to bring her to a final because they're like, we can beat her. Yeah, like and it's like she's one of those people where it's like you just leave her alone because she'll win the eliminations, and then you could just beat her in a final. But kind of seeing how she has turned a switch on, it's kind of be like, I want to get in shape. And if you see Anissa, Total Madness Ride or Die Anissa versus Anissa now, night and day different person. Like she's getting in shape, she's getting herself. I mean, she's always strong, but she's doing the things necessary to possibly go and get rid of that stigma around her.
Okay.
No, that's good stuff. Until I guess we were talking about it the other night with Jordan. I didn't realize that she had gone through kind of that transformation. So good for Anissa. Maybe we'll see something a little different in season 40. Looking forward to that. But someone who always keeps himself in shape, Rachel.
I mean, Rachel's an animal. I mean, like I said last episode, she's a threat, but she doesn't feel like a threat. Like she has a way of just like bringing you in and like being so disarming, but she carries herself with like, I don't know, such power, like such confidence. It's like a quiet confidence, like a quiet power. She doesn't get rattled. But she's able to be friends with everybody, which to me is a dangerous competitor because that's somebody who's always on the right side of things. And, you know, when games get down the line, like that's when that kind of competitor is dangerous, right? Because if you eliminate that person immediately, everybody in their web kind of scurries off and does whatever. But if that person goes on and they have this web, when it comes down to a decision between you or somebody else or them and somebody else, you don't even know that you're on the chopping block until you're on the chopping block. And you're like, how the hell did this happen? How did I not see that Rachel was closer to this person than I was?
No, that's so real. And you can see it in the Brenda Pudding, all that shit, like with All Stars 4. As soon as she leaves, all of her allies, like they're there. They no longer have that sense of control anymore that they had while Rachel was in the game.
Well, you know, I mean, look at who her allies were. I feel like she was the intimidating factor there.
All right, well then, you know,
Tina wasn't intimidating.
I was gonna say let's go to Tina because that was one of her allies in All Stars 4, and she's back.
Tina's not intimidating, but we love that for Tina. We love that Tina's not intimidating, and we love that she's loud. Probably one of the loudest castmates I've ever been in a house with. And like that's saying a lot because we're all loud, but she's the loudest, for sure. And the thing is, people don't realize this about Tina, but she was a former gymnast, and gymnasts just have this weird strength to them that nobody else has. I've never really gotten to play with Tina in the sense that, like, you know, she's one of the ones that was gone forever and then came back, and she actually was a staple character, who just, you know, was like, it's not for me for this time. And then, you know, it's coming back later. I don't know. I can't look at her and be like, this is somebody dangerous to watch out for. It's somebody that's like, damn, she could blow up my game because she's got a loud mouth, but I don't see anything else in that capacity.
Make sure you're not counting on her for a vote after just seeing All Stars 4 would be.
No.
I get it's over. I can't give Paulie advice, back then, but that would have been it, seeing what she did. But let's talk Katie.
Katie, the only thing that sticks out in my mind to her is like that she was smoking a cigarette during an elimination and won, and that she is a firecracker. Mm-hmm. So like, I just want to see that Katie.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I think that's all that needs to be said about Katie.
Yeah, like I don't. Once again, I don't rate Katie as a competitor. But from an entertainment standpoint, like just seeing her pop off on people, I want to see that. Like I like the not give a fuck, like smoking a cigarette during an elimination. Like that is the ultimate. I don't give a fuck.
It's hard to flex that more than smoking a cigarette during elimination. And then lastly, we have Jody.
I feel like that's like the epitome of like era one is like you're able to be a degenerate and good at things.
Yeah.
That's all
like
you need.
I don't think there's an era after era one where there's like a level of degeneracy that still gets shit done.
Oh, absolutely. It was like you were loud and you were out by episode 2.
Yeah.
100%.
Jody, I feel like Jody's a silent sleeper. Like she's fit, she's quiet, she's smart. She's definitely got mom strength. And I feel like she knows what she's doing. And she's got the competitive aspect to like get shit done. Like that's my take on Jody. Like my take on Jody is she may be quiet, but although she's quiet out loud, she's making things happen behind the scenes and nobody's really going to call her on it because she does have the physical prowess to her.
Oh yeah.
That's probably a lot nicer than when I compared her to a ham sandwich last week. So that's good.
I mean, you're not wrong, but like, and to tie it into this, like what we're talking about today, like she gets her 2 wins in this era. Like she's introduced in era 1. She gets her 2 wins here. One of them in a pretty hard duel, and it was the duel, right?
The duel, the first one.
Yeah, her and Wes. So like, she's sneaky.
She is. Here's my biggest thing about era 1 today, in today's day of challenge, is they all created these monster names for themselves, right? And my biggest issue with era 1 players is that's all they refer back to. And I'm more of like, what have you done for me lately? And as much as they say that they were the best era on TV, and like, yeah, at that time they were, you're not the same person. You're not getting into the fights. You're not hooking up. You're not like competing on an insane level, right? Outside of like CT, who's won a lot of championships in the later part of his years because he switched up his strategy. I feel like they rest on their resume, and that would be like if Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls within the first 7 years of him being a quarterback, and then he plays 13 more years and his team comes in last place every single time. And he's like, but I'm a 7-time Super Bowl champ. And it's like, yeah, you are. And at that point in time, you were savage and you were scary. But like now you're just old guy Tom.
Right.
And like that's what I feel like era 1 brings to the table, like completely is like, and I think that a lot of the new people, right, barring myself, like when I first came in, a lot of the new people, like they don't want to take those shots because they don't want to go after the beloved OGs and get the backlash on social media. And then the OGs could definitely be like, oh yeah, you're a loser. You're just taking a shot at me because you have no name. You're trying to make a name for yourself. It's like you've been off TV for over a decade. You know what I mean? Like, I think the mindset of new people kind of need to change a little bit, and they need to kind of like own what they bring to the table, because right now they're bringing nothing to the table, the new people. And the only way to bring something to the table is to bring something to the table and not have that fear of like, well, if I go after this person, am I going to be liked? Am I go after this person? Are the fans going to hate me? If I go after this person, do that? Because if I was an old person and I was resting on my resume, I would hope that the new people do that.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Because if
exactly
they
what
do,
they'd
I
want.
skate.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Because
you're coming into, this house season 40. Paulie, who are you the happiest to see? Who are you just like, shit, they're there? It could be for they're a good competitor, whether, you just don't like them, didn't get along with them coming into the season, but who was happy to see this person, wish this person wasn't here?
I mean, I wish Jordan and Laurel weren't there, right?
Well, I'm
Like
talking
Jordan
from era one. If we're just
from
speaking
era
about era
one.
one, yeah, before we go to move on to two.
Honestly, if I'm being honest, like era one came in and I'm like, all right, cool.
right.
Like I genuinely, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but like Rachel's like probably the only one that's like got the engine and like kind of has that fire. Like when you look in her eyes, right? Like CT, always has it, but it seems like everybody else on era one is just happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not looking to come in and make waves. They're just looking to, get their paycheck, get off. And they know that like, they'll get the interviews, they'll get the, the one-liners, they'll get the storylines, like they'll get whatever. And I feel like that's made them complacent, where it's like, you're coming back after all this time. Don't you want to send a message that you still got it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like, to me, like I looked at era one and I was like, okay, they're here. Awesome. Like I loved seeing them all here for like what they've brought to the show and how they like pushed the show forward and were able to hand it off to essentially era two, which kind of carried the show, in my opinion, for what made it what it is today. Like era one started it, but if we're talking about like who made the challenge and brought it into the era that it is and carried it for the longest period of time, it's era two.
Absolutely.
To me. So like era one, I'm just kind of like, yeah, you're there, but like you guys can boast that you started the challenge, but like you were doing like weird challenges.
Yeah.
Like really weird challenges. Like era two people are the ones that were kind of like doing like really savage stuff and, having to go against like really quality competitors for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's like for era one, my biggest two concerns with them was one, like with them coming in, they were of the mindset, and like before like your era comes in, it's like it was sort of like the seniority thing, like almost if it was like fraternal. It's like, okay, I've done X amount of seasons now. You can't touch me until it's like 2 episodes before the final. That's just how it works. Newbies go in. Like that's the mindset they go in. So is that the mindset they have coming in this? Because I think that's a dose of harsh reality they're going to get if that's their expectation. And 2 is just like, yeah, they've had all-stars, and yes, they've had like a Jordan, West, like some of the newer people come in. But now you are competing against like 30 other people that are honed in on the new style of competition. And it's like when push comes to shove, especially in elimination, can you keep up?
Yeah, my thing about era one is I feel like they play almost with an air of, I don't want to say arrogance because I don't think that that's the word, but if I explain it like this, when Tom Brady was getting to the end of his career, he was not sitting and complaining that defensive ends wanted to sack him and potentially break his ribs. He was not complaining that cornerbacks were trying to intercept his passes. He just played the game, and if he could still compete, he could still compete. I feel like era one rests on the stuff, and they expect everybody to kind of roll over for their game. Mm-hmm. And then when it doesn't pan out that way, they run to social media and they make excuses for it, and then they try and deflect rather than just being like, hey, maybe I don't got it anymore. And they can do that because they have that resume that I talk about, right? Which is why something that I see OGs doing like nowadays, they're just like, oh, how come people don't want to bring this type of stuff? It's like, well, when you were on the bench, like kind of watching for the years that you took off, when there were characters that came in, you were the first people to chime in online and try and like either cancel people or be like, oh, this person's a loser because of this, and this, or, oh, this person is just trying to be like this person from like they were always trying to bring it back to themselves rather than just being like this person reminds me of this person, it's good for the show. And
Absolutely.
I feel like that's them in a nutshell, is they can rest on their resume. They can rest on their laurels. And if anybody takes a shot at them, instead of them being like, damn, shot got taken at me, I'm gone because of my resume that I like to flaunt in everybody's face. So it's like, it's convenient. The resume is convenient when they want to flaunt it in people's faces. But when people are like, damn, that's a pretty good resume, I should probably take a shot at you. It's like, whoa, why are you taking a shot at me? I'm the old person. Like, you're just doing it for clout. And it's like, no, you're talking about how good you are. I feel like I don't want you here.
There definitely, there's a lot of people from the OGs that want to have it both ways. And yeah, no, it's a lot of hypocritical, but I mean, you see the hypocritical things all throughout the challenge. It's part of what makes the challenge. But so if we're actually, going to talk about era 2, I feel like we got to start with the guy's side because it's way less interesting to talk about than the female side. Because this female cast in era 2 is stacked. So let's get the more boring stuff out of the way first.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to start with
start big, work our way down.
Start big. All right, then it's got to be Johnny Bananas. It's got to be the Banana Man.
I mean, listen, he's clearly going to be the leader of the team. All right. Anybody in their right mind would want to get him out immediately because that team crumbles, right? Like if I look at that team and I say, thank you. If I say, what can I do to dismantle this team? Johnny Bananas got to go. He would keep everything in place. He's the one that knows the game better than everybody else. He's got the most decorated resume out of anybody on that team. And it would almost be easy to turn the people on his team against him because of that reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anytime he's in the game, there's a dynamic shift in the game. Because when there's a Johnny Bananas in there, you have to almost play the game towards what you think he's trying to play the game. So either you get rid of him so that he can't control the game, or you have to almost like ride with him playing the game until you can take a shot at him. Because as good as he is, he's also well insulated. So it's very hard to get those shots off. So it's either you go early or you got to ride. And the risk you take is if you talk to too many people about taking the shot, it is going to get back to him and he'll take the shot at you.
I haven't heard it as articulated as that, and I love it because, and I mean this in a very positive way to him, the man is a cockroach. Like, he adapts, he keeps adapting. Every single new era, he starts to get hits. Like, War of the Worlds, I think, was almost secretly a blessing for him. Like, him going out early during those seasons, like, pushed him to be like, okay, I need to now make friends with this new generation so that now I've lost all of my era. I've lost era 3. This new generation, I can now become a part of. I can become a part of it. They'll leave me be until it's too late, and then I can run the final and potentially just win more money. It's like, it's like, everyone sees it. Everyone could take the shot.
Everybody cries about the Vacation Alliance. He started it.
Yeah.
He started it. He became friends with all of them. He brought them together. They're his insulation.
Well,
and those people are so good socially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, what makes him really hard to get out is because he's so good at the game, finding kind of the hack to it. He's always been really good at finding a way to win one of the first few dailies of each season. And when you are one of the first winners, it becomes really easy to be the first name that's thrown out. That's the name we're going to go with. That way we can all get on the same page. And I always feel like, especially we're talking prime Bananas, he gets those first few daily wins because he's safe. He targets maybe the few people that could cause him a few issues. Everyone jumps on board. And then he doesn't have to worry about actually winning the dailies the rest of the season because he is so well insulated that he can more just coast.
See, I don't know if he would take it as an insult But his strategy is almost extremely similar to like what you would want to do in Big Brother. It's like you win an early HOH, you insulate, you get the alliance, you create a target which creates other targets. Then you get to sit back for like half the game, watch everything unfold, and hope as long as it doesn't blow up at any single point, then you can just comp out.
Like Jordan said, he's the master of walking past a room, dropping a grenade in, walking out of it, and then just watching the chaos ensue. And he's even added a new layer to his shtick, which is he goes in saying, I don't want to be here, man. Like, I've done so many of these back to back. Like, I just want to go home early. Like, if there's a time to throw somebody in, like, just let it be me. And everybody sits there kind of like being like, oh, well, he doesn't want to be here. Like, let's keep him along a little bit, and then when it's time, we'll do it. And they sleep on him. And then as soon as they sleep on him, he just goes to work, gets everybody. And then next thing you know, he's at the end. I mean, on USA 2, that's what he was saying since day one. And then he makes it to the final. And it's like the numbers were against him. It worked.
And it's almost like when he puts out that propaganda so much, it's like almost any reality TV show that if you repeat something enough, everyone believes it. And it's his whole thing in USA 2 was he said the whole house was against him the entire season. He went into one elimination.
One elimination. Right.
Sure, there were points where it was against him, but it wasn't like he had the Chris Underwood story that season where went into 4 different eliminations.
Yeah, he's very good at putting it out there, and like it works, right? Because like unless you like know his game, if you're new or if you haven't played with him in a while and he's sitting there being like, oh, it's tough to be me, everybody wants to get me out, blah blah blah, like it's naturally going to cause people to want to migrate towards him to like help him. And then it's like in his mind he's like, I gotcha. Right. And that I think is such a masterful way of doing things, right? Like on House of Villains, like you saw how masterful he is at doing those things. The only reason why he wasn't successful on Traitors is because there was a Dan Giesling that was like, no, he's dangerous. He's got to go immediately. Right. Otherwise, he would have probably made it all the way to the end of Traitors as well because he's that good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in a world with no Dan Giesling, you see the 3 challenge people just like waltz to the end because they just would have had it unlocked. Like CT with the likability, Trishelle had some reads given to her, and bananas would have just been bananas. And like
that's what I'm saying. If you on Traitors, if you were looking at the most dangerous out of those 3, or at least who presents themselves as the most dangerous, it's him. And that's the only reason why he got tagged on Traitors, because when you really look at his track record, up until like I kind of came in and targeted him early, like those 2 seasons, either he was making it 65% of the way, or he's making it to the final, or he's making it right before the final and going home. But even after his 7th win, when he comes back on Ride or Dies, he makes it to a final. He goes on World Champs. He doesn't make the final. Should have won. He goes on World Champs. He gets targeted early, but that's because there was a lot of CBS gamers there who just won USA, and they were like, "Fuck this guy," you know what I mean? But comes on USA 2, makes it to the end. So, as dangerous as he is, he's also good at coming in very unassuming, and kind of can coast his way to the end.
Interesting.
That's Johnny Bananas. Wow. Not much more you can say. A lot of high praise. It's someone that I know coming into it, we're either seeing, all right, he's probably either going to go out early or he's going to find a way to sneak himself back to a final. But if we're talking about someone else, it's someone who I'm really happy is here, especially after his, say, last All-Star showing, is Nehemiah.
Love Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, I've known him for a while, and he's so strong, so physically fit, very intelligent, and no fear of taking the big shots. And I think he proved himself in his All-Stars showings. And he also showed that he can carry the show when he's the main guy. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic with him on that team, right? Because Johnny is the guy.
Right.
Mhm.
But Nehemiah is also very capable, very strong. And on All-Stars, he was the guy, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that he has a lot of potential to win the flagship if he plays everything perfect. But because he also is looking for that, he also runs the risk of being that guy that gets tossed into elimination after elimination.
Mhm.
And that's just the risk you take. If you're going to swing hard, if you're going to swing high, if you're going to swing frequently, either you connect every time or you miss, and then you're the one that's kind of getting the brunt of it. Like I knew on War of the Worlds 1 with the shots I was taking, if I wasn't winning the amount of dailies that I was winning, I was going into almost every elimination. And the only reason why I didn't go into eliminations when I didn't win dailies is because people were like, he's so good at these dailies. I wonder what he's like in these eliminations. We don't want to take this shot. On War of the Worlds 2, I knew that if I missed the shot against Laurel and Johnny, I was going into every elimination that season. And that's just the challenge, right? High risk, high reward, right? But on the flip side of that, high risk, you're the punching bag for the season.
Yeah. No, and I think that explains Nehemiah perfectly. Like, because I don't think he's afraid of the big risk at all, which is admirable. Because like you have so many people that are so hesitant because either they want to just make it another round, get that next paycheck, being able to just last longer in the game. But he's like, no, I'm here to fucking win. I'm here to make a statement. I'm here to show everyone I can be among the best. Like all the people that you call your goats, all the people that you call great, I'm there. You guys just don't recognize it yet. And like I think All Stars was that great first step of like showing it. I would love to see it here, but I do have that concern that if Era 2 is getting targeted, it's not going to be Johnny that's going to be looked at. It's not going to be like a Ryan or a Derek. It's going to be Nehemiah.
Yeah.
So I just need him to pull through.
Yeah.
That's what I'm the most concerned with Nehemiah, like looking at just the rest of his team in Era 2. Who's riding for Nehemiah other than Nehemiah on Era 2? And I'm struggling to come up with names.
I think Cara would be the only one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think Cara, potentially Johnny if he sees the benefit of Nehemiah.
No,
but I just don't see Johnny as a competitor wanting him.
Yeah, Johnny's too smart. Johnny's not going to keep around people that might take shots at him. He's too smart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's there's two types of players, right? There's like a Jordan who likes to keep around the strong players because he's like, I want to keep you around because that almost shields me and I know I can beat you. Johnny is more strategic in the sense where he's more he calculates the risks. So if he says, let me look at man 1 on Era 2 or in the whole household, and even though this person's close to me, what's his percentage of flipping on me or beating me? He's got to go. Whereas somebody who has a lower percentage of beating him or flipping on him, he's going to keep them around. And that's probably why he's won so many finals, because he calculates that risk so well that he eliminates the people who could beat him as the game progresses.
Right. And the one thing that really detracts from Nehemiah is we wouldn't be having some of these concerns if Wes was on Era 2 and on this season. Because nobody rides harder for Nehemiah than Wes.
100%.
And like if as soon as Wes is in there, it becomes Nehemiah's untouchable.
Yeah.
And Wes would get targeted.
Exactly.
Wes would get targeted. Yeah. Yeah. And then this is where we start to move to, if you're looking at, say, questionable decisions, it's these next 3, but we know a lot of the reasons. It's Wes was quote unquote retired, wanted to go film House of Villains 2. It was dominated by Evan and Kenny, who banned, not coming back,
Right.
and a
Not
few
coming
others.
back.
So it's where we get these last three. But coming off of, I feel like at least two of the three had above average showings on All Stars 4. So maybe they have some good momentum going. Let's start with Brandon. He obviously went out early after, kind of having his beef with Cara, but it's the first time where we've seen a Brandon willing to take shots. So it's a new version of him. So I'm interested to see how that's going to translate onto 40 with this stack cast.
Yeah, I think Brandon will for sure take shots, but he's not going to be the ringleader. Like, he seems more of like I'm the chill, funny guy. He's almost like him and Leroy, very similar in terms of like how they make people feel in terms of like funny, welcoming, and all that stuff. He's just less loud about it, and he's more of the guy that will wait for you to approach him to be like, yeah, I'm on board. And he'll do it. He'll dig his feet in the sand and he'll die on that hill. But he's not going to be the one going around just being like, I think it's time for this,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And once again, like, I feel like if you haven't been on many seasons, you got to come in, you got to swing,
Right. Like, and that was my hope with him coming onto All Stars 4, seemed to have like a different perspective on it, because for people who don't really understand the Brandon story, like outside like Cutthroat, where he was put into a bunch of eliminations, and one is like, dude was a guy who, because he is how you described him, would be put up early, shipped on out. Like, he's a great guy.
DQ'd for being drunk.
DQ for being drunk too, breakfast beers, all that stuff. Yeah. But like, he's the guy that I would want to chill with. But I don't know if he's the guy who will fight for me if I was like in the game. And with that, then how am I going to fight for him if it's me or him going on the block?
I agree. And like, it's tough to play with those kind of players, because you do need people who, even if they're not going to outright die on the sword for you, they have to have some kind of nuance in order to shift heat away from you. And I don't think he's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
I completely agree with all that. All right, let's talk Ryan next.
I love Ryan. Ryan's just like, he's just such a vibe of a human. I don't think it matters so much his competitive status, because from a social standpoint, probably one of the best social people in the sense of likability.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Every season he's on, he's always really likable. And I think Era 2, it's where you saw a lot of it. Era 2 and then some into Era 3, that there's some of my favorite types of characters, for ones that they give good confessionals, they're likable, they're funny, but they also kind of really don't have much of a shot to win. So they're just there to really kind of make the most of their moment. And then it's going to go. Like, I think of someone like a Jasmine as well, where I love every season that Jasmine's on, and she's going to pop back. She's going to have her moments, but then a quarter to halfway through the game, she's going to go. And I think Ryan is a lot of that, but because he's so well connected socially, he is someone that can sneak by later in the game than you'd realize. That I wouldn't be surprised if you got to the last, 15 people left in the game, you're like, oh shit, Ryan's still there.
Yeah, well, exactly. And there's something to be said about that, like, and I think he's capable enough. Ultimately, when you come into the challenge, you need to think to yourself, am I capable of winning a final? If the answer is yes, then the question becomes, how do I make it to the final? Do I have to do it by force, or do I have to do it by just making the final? And I think Ryan's one of the guys where in his mind, he believes he can win the final. So he's like, well, how do I just get there? I don't want to have to win the dailies and then put blood on my hands with all these people that I make great relationships with. If there comes a time for me to take a shot at somebody, and I'm in the power position to do it, I will, and I'll be justified for it and have my reasons, so that I'm not going to get the blowback of just like a random shot and somebody being like, dude, I thought we were friends, you know?
Right.
And I think that player always has a good chance of like making it to the end and potentially winning.
Yeah, like Ryan's never someone that I look at that'd be like, oh, if he gets to the end, he's winning. But like Dan said my thoughts on him perfectly. He's always that dude who were in the penultimate episode before the final. I'm like, oh, this guy's still here. Damn, his social game must be good. And I'm like, that's what I expect from him. He's one of those rare people who come in during this time period who isn't like a main character, but like made their name off of being like a good supporting character.
Yeah.
I just want to see a little more grit behind there. I want to see him be like, okay, I know I have this social pool.
Yeah.
Let me show everyone how like I can actually spin things.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, and I always give him credit for his run in Fresh Meat 2, where at that time you could argue that two of the best strategically was Kenny and Wes, and Ryan played them both the middle perfectly, that he got all the way to that last elimination. And so I don't think there's very many people in Era 2 or just in general that could handle those two people going at it at the time and manage to play that middle without ever declaring a side or getting any blood on their hands.
Yeah. I mean, and that's his social genius.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that leaves us with Derek Chavez as last, which I think in All-Stars 4, while we didn't necessarily see a ton from it, there were the few standout eliminate, like his sprinting that you had in the stadium challenge, where it was just like, oh, maybe is there something more here than what we thought? Because generally Derek isn't long for the game.
I think Derek has all the components that we just spoke about with Ryan, only he has the competitive aspects to him to hang with the big dogs. He can solve puzzles, he can run, he can swim, he's fast, he's physical. He has his social game as his like main weapon, but he also has the physical side to kind of be like, well, I could be a little bit more risky because I've got this.
Right. The issue with him was that it was not until All-Stars 4 where we really got to see that part of him. We saw him being the likable person. We saw him being the social person, but never really got him anywhere. He was always one of the first two eliminations of the season. It was All-Stars 4 where we'd start actually seeing like, oh, this dude can run. This guy can win dailies. This guy can do puzzles, can swim, can do whatever. And we've seen it in recent finals. Like, if you can so much as just be a great runner, you have a shot at winning the final if you get there. So he's one of those guys where I'm like, I'm still waiting to see how seriously I should take him. But I'm like, if the longer he stays on the season, the more I'm like, hey, these guys might regret letting him walk to a final.
Yeah, I could say just from his All-Stars 4 appearance, it just goes to show you that maybe if he never got the early boots back in the day, maybe Derek Chavez would be like in the realm of people we talk about. Yeah. Right? Like I truly believe that when it comes to him, because I do think he has all those components, and it's not just running. He can swim too. You know what I mean? So it's like he can win any type of daily that is out there.
I think the only thing that was holding him back and holding everyone else back was the fact that even All-Stars 4, he hasn't had that breakout moment where it's just like, there it is. That's something I can always point back to and be like, that's why I believe, a Derek can win this game. Is we just haven't had that yet. Not to say that it can't happen, but we just don't have the evidence.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So like we sort of end with Era 2 guys where it's like the cream of the top's cream of the top. Like Johnny has to be there. Nehemiah, great choice, especially when you don't have Wes, Kenny, and Evan. the other three, they get the golden opportunity of being like, you guys took a chance on me to represent on this season. Let me show you why you made the right choice.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Is there, before we move on to the women, is there anyone not named Wes, Kenny, or Evan that you would have liked to seen, in one of those kind of 3 spots that were up for grabs? I mean, I can always say Danny Jameson is ironic just because that ego is just it's. I mean, you do that.
There's only one name that really rings to me, just because if you want that undeserved ego, but someone who can actually make it a little farther, Dan, it's MJ, because like MJ won when he was in his rookie years. He won when he came back in All-Stars 2. Dude has his ego, and I feel like you put him in there, you have the physical aspect. Like if you replace him with a Brandon, like you're upgrading there, and you can still have your social people on that team, and then you just have MJ who will just be a mental barrier for people.
I would have maybe liked to see MJ, just because I would have liked to see how his ego meshed with the other egos.
Oh, and it would clash.
Yeah.
The person in the comment that said Dunbar, I love you. That's me there.
No, we don't need him.
Yeah. No, that's where it just became tough with the guys, because those last 3 spots, like if you you just end somewhere around season 21 or 22, you think they're no brainers. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, we got to where we are. And so if we move on to the women, I think I'm going to start with Kellyanne, because the other 4 are just down.
Yeah. Isn't it kind of weird that like someone like Kellyanne, who by no means is a weak competitor, is the weakest female on Era 2?
It's nuts.
It just shows how strong the women were in this era.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Because like Kellyanne, it's like underrated back in her area. Like she comes back and then people are like, oh, okay, she maybe does have something more to her.
I think if Kellyanne like was able to not be in her own head, she would be one of those elite, but she does have a tendency to get rattled.
Mm-hmm.
It's that time where she dated Wes. After that, she just never came back right. I blame Wes.
I blame Wes too.
Let's all blame Wes. Okay, Wes, we need a formal apology. You can come on here and you can give an apology to Kellyanne. We'll bring you in. It's all good.
Yeah. You just get in here, Wes. Just say that, you ruined what could have been of Kellyanne's legacy.
It's one of the things that's always crazy with Kellyanne is I feel like she's someone who she isn't, that iconic, memorable, but she's fairly memorable. And then you look back and you're like, she hasn't done nearly as many seasons as what you'd think for someone that you still kind of remember.
Right. I agree. I didn't realize she didn't do that many seasons, because Kellyanne's a name that I always just kind of relate to the challenge.
Yeah, and like there was other seasons where she was supposed to be on, like, or like that somehow were drops. Like the one that comes to mind is the more recent Battle of the Seasons in Era 3.
Be a Sydney team. Yeah.
Yeah, the Sydney team was supposed to be a thing, like her, Kahada. Oh, another name from Era 2 that could have been there was Kahada.
Dunbar and someone else.
It was, I think Isaac was in the pool at some point. But anyway, she has an appeal to her. And I think like that's always been number one. But like I think the fact that she's always been like an outside the box, sort of like plays off of being like the outcast, the quirky one, that I feel like she's great for a season like this, especially within her own season, because she's not going to play nice within her own team. And I'm sort of here for that.
Yeah, she would bring the chaos, and she would have no problem doing it on her team.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just worry about her surviving long term with this stacked of a team. Like at this point, like we don't know how eliminations are going to go down if you're going against your own era if you're going against someone from another era. But
Right.
if she has, that's my biggest concern, is if it starts out where she has to go against any of the 4 Goliaths on her, women that are on the team. That's my biggest concern for Kellyanne. And because I think Kellyanne's someone that Bananas, a Laurel would easily toss in right away, just being like, we don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, like, unfortunately for Kellyanne being on this team, she is, if they're looking to trim the fat on that team, like, she's the first one.
Right. Which, and it's like so weird to say it like that. 'Cause like, none of us like consider her as like the dead weight of
No.
it. It's just like,
Exactly.
when you have so much riches on the girls' side, someone has to be the 5th leg.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if we kind of move on, I guess we'll go Aviv next. Someone that was incredibly shocking when she saw it was on the cast list. I think so many people forgot about her, but I think since the cast was leaked, kind of, stories more about, her background and why she hasn't been back to the show have leaked out to the public. I feel like there's just been a growing anticipation on the challenge fandom, just waiting to see. We don't really know what to expect from Aviv, but we can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, she's in crazy shape, and she's another one of those people like Rachel, very likable, very good at connecting with everybody. So, I almost feel like her and Rachel are one and the same, only like Aviv is fun sized.
I can see that. Because like I watched Fresh Meat for the first time like a couple of years ago, and I remember with her, I was like, okay, sure, she's partnered with Darrell. Darrell's on his win streak at this point. Everyone's intimidated to go against him, especially like a Wes who like knows what the elimination is. He's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with Darrell in elimination. She was also very good from her standpoint, not even in the competitive sense, but also her social game with like the other rookies at that time. Like she had them down. Like they were not going to touch her. And I don't know. I saw her and at first I was like, what the fuck? Like why is she on this cast? And then like I sat back like thinking about it, I'm like, well, if they couldn't get some of these other people, she's a hell of a get. It's the can she repeat? Like you already have that story baked in there. You have Darrell here on the season. Like you have a storyline with her. It all just makes sense. And this is when casting makes great choices.
Yeah. I agree.
We talked about how likable she is, and I think just because she hasn't been back I think we all want to see how she does so bad that it would be disappointing if she got clipped early. But who else does she really know other than Darrell? And I guess, Derek was on that first season, but so not Ryan was, but it was just, she doesn't have those connections. Has she even talked to any of those people in years that just don't get clipped early? And I think she is good enough socially that she can connect. It's just, she's someone that it's like, all right, just hold on those first few weeks. I want to actually see what she's going to bring to season 40.
Right, because like she was 21 when she played Fresh Meat. Like she's lived like an entire life since then. It's almost like they made this casting choice as if it was All Stars, where it's like we're gonna pull someone, only played one season, you've never seen them again, but you're always like, but could they do it again? Like, could they come in and just be great for
that would be the storyline right there? Is can she go 2 for 2?
Right.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt it. If you let her get there. She was able to compete with a great player, and we don't know or at least like Dan and I don't know what the final looks like in terms of how they compete with each other, but they compete with a partner at any point. Like she's shown she can. And there's a lot of great options for her.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. yeah, another concern with her is just I think she's great, but the women in her era, and then just the women, 75% of the women from this cast, like you could tell me so and so wins the season on the women's side, and I feel like there's 13 names that I'd be like, I mean, wouldn't be that surprised. And so I think it just speaks to how stacked not only just this era is with the women, but overall there's a lot of great competitors. And speaking of great, kind of went out on top, someone who a lot of challenge fans have wanted to see for quite a while is Emily Schramm coming back.
Right. I mean, she fits the mold of what everybody has said about her. I mean, just a physical specimen. You know, it's crazy to think that she is that physically dominant, right? And she is a specimen, but when you talk to her, she's just like this light butterfly. Like, she's very spiritual. She's very much like vibes, like stays away from bad energy. And you know, my only thing with meeting her is it's like, you know, you watch her and you watch how physically dominant she was, and you see how she has like that switch and that edge in her when she's competing. But then you meet her and she's so, I don't want to hurt anybody. So it's like, how is that gonna bode now?
Right. I think that's the biggest question mark for me, because I'm one of those people who's like, when I saw Emily Schramm was on the cast, I was like, oh, sign me up. I'm ready to watch her again. Like, she was one of the big reasons why I got into the show. Like, when I'm just from like a physical standpoint, just I was like, this is a specimen. Like, this is a unicorn at the point. Like, I come in, she's winning every elimination. She's getting to every single final. Like, she was one, like, at that point in time, like, people were comparing her in just terms of track record to like an Evelyn type, which is like, you put them on a season and yeah, they're going to the final. Doesn't matter if you put them in. Doesn't matter if you don't put them in. They're going to be there, and you're just going to hope that you can at least get second place. And so she's one of those people on this season where I'm like, I'm so curious, because there's now like 3 of them on her own team. Of like, oh, you put them on a cast, and it's like, unless you put them in a million eliminations, they're going to see the final. And like you said, she's hippie now. Like, she's just like, that's very much her vibe. That's her personality. Like, can she continuously turn it on and off when she needs to?
And she's someone that I don't like. I feel like is talked about. She's even more so than a Kellyanne. Like, she almost has that, like, you know, a legend status. Only competed on 3 of the flagship seasons. And you look at her first go around was cutthroat. They got to the final. They finished 3rd, but all of the dudes got clipped on her team. So they went into the final where they really had no shot, because you looked at other teams that had guys and they had 4 and 5 people, and she went in with it was Jen. You look at her second season, she was paired with Ty. Ooh, my bad, with Ty. And they performed really well, but they went against CT and Diem and Bananas and Camilla in the final. Like, that's incredibly hard to go against. And then finally, her 3rd season, she's partnered with Paula, and they won 75% of all challenges that season and dominated the final.
No, something I just saw about
resume.
When you said that, because we had the band guys on era 2 guys. Like, does Aviv even make the season if Camilla's not banned? You can't talk era 2 or even most of era 3 without mentioning Camilla.
Camilla's one of the most dominant competitors of all time. And, you know, she's in the category of Kenny and Evan.
Yeah. That's
so what if?
I was thinking, I don't know how I wasn't thinking about that. I guess I was thinking of, who would I like to see of people that were actually viable? And I, almost crossed her off, because the way she flames out with Dirty 30, everything with Leroy, it kind of,
right.
Yeah,
that's a tough one to ever come back from, where it's just like
you're not coming back from that.
Yeah, you can't. It's and stuff. But Emily, super pumped to see her back. And then You know who we have to save for last, so we're going to talk Laurel.
I mean, honestly, I feel like talking Laurel and Cara, like
We have to
at this
talk about
point,
them
is
together.
in the same. It's in the same breath, right? Because they're just coming off of All Stars 4. We all saw how that happened. Both great competitors. They both bring a lot to the show. They're at each other's throats, more so on Laurel's side, for sure. I don't
Is
think she
this?
has the.
I was going to say, Paulie, you might be able to give us some more, background, just considering your personal life. Is we see how All Stars 4 hands out that Cara keeps trying to kind of keep giving that olive branch to Laurel, and Laurel will ceremoniously take it, but then in confessionals behind her back, just takes shot after shot of Cara. And then we even saw it a little bit more playful when they did like the 39 reunion that they were together. And we know now, we've seen Cara kind of post out that she's done with all of that. But heading into 40, was Cara aware how much Laurel was kind of digging at her and going after on All Stars 4?
No. There was honestly some hope that they were going to be all right and be able to work together. And I'll just let it play out the way that it plays out. But I don't think Laurel's capable of accepting an olive branch. I do not think she is the type of person that, in a street fight, okay, there's the type of person where, like, when they see the person unconscious, they stop and they go, oh shit, I should stop. And then there's the person that keeps beating the head and could almost like kill the person or worse, and like they won't stop. Laurel's that person. There's no capability of knowing or understanding why it won't stop and why she won't let her foot off the gas, or why she won't accept the olive branch. She's extremely calculated, extremely manipulative, and also extremely competitive and extremely athletic. So those 4 combos in one is just a recipe for a lot. And when it comes to like the dynamic with Cara, you have 2 people that have the ability to have like that Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa home run thing, or like, the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird thing, right? And even though they were at each other's throats competitively, there was that mutual respect that they were both doing something great, and on sometimes one person got the better of the other, and on the other times the other person gets the better of the other. Whereas Laurel's more of the mindset of maybe Michael Jordan, only like meaner, and like, like where she has to crush everybody into a pulp so much so that there leaves no doubt, and it doesn't matter at what cost. Whether it's friendships, whether it's how she's viewed, it doesn't matter. It does not resonate with her, because the only thing that resonates with her is winning. But she does it in a way where she has to make other people feel the lowest. And, I don't know if that stems from like a certain type of athlete mentality where it's like break your competitors mentally as much as you can in order to not only dominate them physically, but dominate them spiritually and mentally and emotionally. Or if she's just really that shitty. Because I really haven't seen the other side outside of it be like it was a game. This is me as a competitor. I've always seen the doubling down on the actions of shit that, like, if she was just like, yeah, I did that, but that's how I compete and that's how I try and break the competitors, people would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. She doubles down on that. It's like, no, they deserved it. And it's like, not really. Like when you watch All Stars 4 back, you're kind of like, did Cara really deserve what you were doing? No. Like, was Cara genuinely wanting to be there for you? Yes. and you were shitting on her. Like, there's really no, like that takes the athlete side of it out of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, because like your thing about the Michael Jordan personality, I think like hits it nail on the head. Because I'm like, Michael Jordan was the guy who always he remembered everything. He kept everything in the chamber. Dude brings his like high school coach and college coaches who didn't accept him to his Hall of Fame speech to publicly humiliate them while he's accepting being like renounced as the best player to play the game. Like, he wants to belittle you. He wants to make you feel small because he knows that's what gives him the competitive edge over you, even in a non-game environment. It's so interesting seeing Laurel in a game with a Cara, and especially with an Emily, where it's like, Emily, we just talk about, like, can turn it on, turn it off. But, like, when she turns it off, like, she's pleasant. Like, she's very nice. But when she turns it on, it's never to the point where you're like, oh, this person turns it on and only sees red. Like, Laurel turns it on, and I think, like, she doesn't even see what's in front of her anymore. She just sees, like, there's a body in front of me. I'm going to pulverize it. I'm going to humiliate it. I'm going to make you feel horrible about yourself because I'm going to win. Like that, and that's the end of the story. And she either doubles down on it after the fact or has cognitive dissonance over it and be like, that never happened. It's not how you saw it. The editing didn't show everything that happened. And I'm like, well, it's fun when you can hide behind editing, but we saw what we saw.
But the thing is, and I understand people who use that excuse, but she only uses that excuse when it comes to her. Because when it comes to other people, it's no, that's who they are.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And if they try to use the same excuse of like, well, it's the editing, she's like, nope, it's who they are. And that's where the line gets drawn and it gets blurry because it's like, well, it's only the editing when it comes to you.
Can't be for just you and not everyone else, It's like
exactly.
Yeah. Laurel winning All-Stars 4 was one of the worst things that could happen because it'd be like having like the child that's jealous that it's their sibling's birthday. So then you're rewarding them for, okay, you're jealous, so I'm going to give this to you. And she just keeps doubling down of, well, I won. So clearly everything I did to get here was right. And it's just like, no, we can admit where, there's a lot of teams or people out there that have won championships and they didn't play a perfect game. And that's fine to do, but acting like I wouldn't change anything, like that's all right. So you wouldn't change everything with Nicole. Clearly, you wish you could change that if you follow everything that she said.
Right.
So I think it's okay if you admit, hey, I wish I could change some things that I said or how I acted towards Cara on the season.
Yeah, and she won't.
No, and we know that.
She won't. We know that. I think like she was more upset at Cara for calling it out than she was at Nicole for actually doing it.
Right. Yeah. We talked about it on the podcast. I was like, I like lost my damn mind when she was like, a good friend wouldn't tell me that. I'm like, a good friend wouldn't tell you that the person you're seeing
what world are you
is
living in?
Horrible. I'm like, a good friend will tell you how it is, whether you like it or not. It's on you to accept it, and you're just choosing to ignore it. So it's not on the friend.
Or, you go back to it's where Laurel's actually venting to Cara. And, a friend comes to you and is venting and has all these things or whatever. And then Cara tries to give any bit of piece of advice. And she's just like, well, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to listen to you, bitch. You're not supposed to tell me how to fix anything. It's like,
right. Exactly.
How does that work?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Like, as strong as the female dynamic is on Era 2, the Cara Laurel looming everything could cause a bad team dynamic. If they're able to put it aside, they're the best team there. If they can't, it could be one of those situations where they should be winning everything, but they're losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like the other story with both of them is also like, unfortunately, it all comes back, especially with this era, to Johnny. And it's like,
and
is Johnny going to mend us? He's closer to Laurel.
Cara.
You see them hanging out in Florida all the time. Him and Cara has always had the had moments of greatness and had moments of where they absolutely could not be in the same room with each other. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they still,
last time they were there,
they'll talk
not
every
great,
now and then, but
right.
Laurel probably is like planning the strategy leading up to the game.
Right. Whereas Cara's just like more normal, I would say, where she's like,
Right.
I know the people that I know when I come into a season. I will work on it when I'm there.
Yeah, well, it's like, I think Cara knows that anything she says to Johnny can and will be used against her or anybody that she's possibly working with or close to her. But Laurel's like, Johnny's more intimidated and afraid of me to ever do any of that to me. And he knows that I'm intimidating to everybody else in the house, which is something he can use to his advantage.
Right. And as soon as you know what the final will be like, as long as it doesn't say solo winner, Banana sees an opportunity there because like they basically won together in free agents. Like he knows what she's capable of doing, and as long as he can see usefulness there, then he's like, okay, I will side with you.
Yeah.
He's never going to go against Laurel. We've never, even where there's been opportunities,
it's never happened, it never will happen.
Yeah. I mean, even you look back to, she was kind of siding with CT over them in Rivals, but the next time we saw Bananas and Laurel together, they were right back on the same page. So I don't see any way where this season plays out where both of them aren't there, that they're not, kind of working in lockstep.
But you know what? That's fine. Because that allows us to now talk about the last person on the team, the girls' team, who also is at her best when she's the underdog, and that's Cara Maria.
It's very true. It's always interesting to say that she's the underdog, right?
Right.
Shouldn't
you look at her and
you look at the stats, it's not underdog stats.
No.
And it's always interesting because it's like when you put her and Laurel and Emily Schromm standing next to each other, you could almost sit there and be like, substitute one out for the other. Like everybody's going to have an opinion of who the strongest of the three is, right? But why is it that Cara is the one that usually gets thrown into the eliminations if you had to pick between the three? You know what I mean? Right. And that's the question for the ages. And I think that's what creates the underdog aspect of it. If it's like, if those three are kind of equal in the sense where some people may say Laurel's the GOAT, some people may say Emily's the GOAT, some people may say Cara's the GOAT. Why is it then in the game, the competitors sit there and be like, I don't want to fuck with Emily. I don't want to fuck with Laurel. I'll fuck with Cara.
I think that's simply just because it's been done so often that and you haven't really seen the seasons where people are saying, I'm going to fuck with Emily or Laurel, that it's easier for them to just go back to the Cara well. It's not right, but it happens. Yeah. And I think because she doesn't necessarily we were talking about, Bananas, that he gets it out there and saying, oh, the whole house is against me. And he turns it into a whole story point. We're sure the storyline may focus on it being the house versus Cara, but you don't really see too many of, her throwing herself a pity party. It's more of, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to win. And I'm going to show you why I am the baddest person here.
Well, You know what her pity party is? Her pity party is then proving all of them wrong, becoming a head honcho in the game. And then everyone getting mad that she suddenly decided to have courage and stand on her own 2 feet and be like, I'm that bitch. And everyone like, we don't want that. I'm like, well, what card do you want? Whereas like Laurel comes in as the athlete and Emily comes in as a beast. And like, my opinion is like, if you look at the three of them, the person I would want to pick on the most is Laurel, because I know Laurel's the one who can get shaken the most of the three when push comes to shove. Like Emily doesn't have the track record of falling under the pressure. Cara, more times than not, has proven she can overcome it. Laurel has shown, especially in later seasons, can get frazzled, especially in this newer age of challenges where a lot more eliminations involve mental puzzles, where it's like she gets.
It's just always been interesting how like when Cara would just sit there and take it, everybody's like, yeah, underdog, and then when she was finally like fuck you guys. Everybody was like, you're miserable. And it's like,
Right.
Jesus.
What do you want?
Yeah, just pick your story and stick with it, for better or for worse.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah,
it's crazy. You know, I prefer Cara with a backbone. You know what I mean? Like, she's not whiny. You know, like, she always had a tendency of like being whiny when all that stuff was happening, but when push came to shove, she'd be like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do it." Right? And I think that's why a lot of people just did it anyway. But I prefer her with the backbone, where you see her on All Stars 4. She's, you know, I mean, you saw it on War of the Worlds 1 and 2 when she was like, I'm taking this into my own. I'm doing it. It got such backlash, right? But once again, on All Stars 4, she's not backing down, right? But she wasn't controlling the game, so therefore people are able to be like, okay, you're in the same position you've always been in, but now you can't use the whining excuse and that it's annoying, because she wasn't whining.
Right.
Well, what's
Absolutely.
ironic about everything with All Stars 4 is she gets put into all these people that are kind of at the top that want kind of their 15 minutes of fame back in, being like, all right, this is my moment to shine. And the fact that they all galvanized against Cara, it's just like, all that everyone in the house did was you made Cara the biggest star of the season, where Handjob Steve was second, but like, you know, that was by a mile and a half. So you just put her as, you could have just put her on the poster by herself, and that sums up All Stars 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
we're talking about
and that's another thing that I got to say to the OGs who try and come back and be like, well, if the ratings weren't so bad, they wouldn't have to bring us back. It's like, no, they did bring you back, and you did nothing for the ratings. The ratings got good when she came back, and she came back alone. Like, let's just put that out there. Okay.
And it also goes to show, like, with her, like, mainly with her and Johnny, it's like past Era 1, where Era 1 had the benefit of being in that time period where everyone watched reality because they watched anything that was on TV. Like, you had 6 channels, and so you're going to get 7 million views. Cara and Johnny are still 2 of the first people that you talk about when you're like, name someone from the challenge. It's like those 2 and CT. Those are the first 3 names that get brought up every single time. And there's a reason why. And that's star power, regardless. You ooze it, you can't be born, or you can't make it, you're born with it.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, in closing, I think Era 2 is the best team.
And that's crazy to say, even with the guys being like, we're like, there's all these people that could have been on the team. Because with the girls,
power of the women are just too strong on that team.
Yeah, and even with that, it's like you don't even have all the people. Like, you can't have Camilla. You don't have Sarah Wrights on the team. Like, you can make a whole other Era 2 women's group.
You can make an A squad and B squad of Era 2, and they'd still be better than the women on all of the other eras.
Yeah, as a whole, absolutely. It's crazy to think about.
I'd agree that they're the best team, because if you think about it, there's a lot of times where in the teams it comes down to your weakest link, and it's just for, you know, it could be someone, it's generally like an Anissa, you know, we're giving her the benefit of the doubt of coming back in shape, but someone like that who was going to slow down the team, where it's none of the women are going to slow down that team in Era 2. So I don't think there is going to be a stop. So as long as it's, you know, a challenge that goes out that's competing over the course of, you know, an hour or so, I don't ever see them slowing down.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed. But man, we're 2 eras in. We got 2 more weeks to go, 2 more eras to talk about before we get down into season 40. And I'll be honest, these podcasts are just hyping me up more for when that season finally comes to fruition.
It's going to be an epic season. I cannot stop stressing it enough. It's going to be epic.
Dan, close us out.
Yeah, so, you know, as we'll obviously be back same time next Wednesday discussing Era 3. If you haven't listened to the podcast we did the other night, it was myself, Paulie, and Jordan. I can't recommend it enough to go back and listen to that. The feedback on it's been awesome. Obviously, when you're talking to one of the GOATs, it's been great. And look at all those people that are just commenting. They're like, I wasn't so sure about Paulie, but man, he's a good host. I love what he's bringing to the table. Like, Paulie's just turning those haters into lovers left and right.
Just bring them on, baby. Bring them on. We'll wine and dine them.
Yeah, so go out and check that out. Like I said, we'll be back next week. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Check out all the different things that are happening at Reality After Show. We have a ton of stuff going on with, Johnny and Matt continuing to do off-season Survivor coverage. I know Rachel Riley and Jen Hoffman, they're doing Big Brother and is anything else regarding reality. Sari Fields and Jared, they're doing their own Big Brother podcast, and there's plenty more that are popping up on the feed. So make sure to, like and subscribe, hit the bell to get notified whenever we go live. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to it, please take a few seconds to rate and review us 5 stars. It helps us out greatly. We'd appreciate that. Let us know what you're thinking of Paulie joining the pod, because it's been great, and just make him feel some more love. And then as always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron at realitypatron.com. Join us, sign up for a month. If you don't like it, Johnny will send your money back. Doesn't hold anyone hostage. And for myself, Paulie, and Alex, that'll do it for us tonight. We will be back with you all next week. See ya.
See you guys.